Venice, a city that shouldn't exist, built on water, defying nature, and surviving for centuries against the odds. Today, we'll uncover the impossible engineering behind Venice, how refugees fleeing war built a city on mud and marsh, how wooden piles became the foundation of palaces, and how this miracle of human ingenuity still stands strong after 1,500 years. The islands are in the shallow Venetian lagoon, an enclosed bay lying between the mouths of the Pur and the Piave rivers, more exactly between the Brenta and the Sile. As of 2025, the city proper, Commune of Venice, has 249,466 inhabitants, nearly 50,000 of whom live in the historical island city of Venice, Centro Storico, while most of the population resides on the mainland, terra firma, and about 25,000 live on other islands in the lagoon, estuario. Together with the cities of Padua and Treviso, Venice is included in the Padua-Treviso-Venice metropolitan area, PATREV, which is considered a statistical metropolitan area, with a total population of 2.6 million. The name is derived from the ancient Veneti people who inhabited the region by the 10th century BC. The city was the capital of the Republic of Venice for almost a millennium, from 810 to 1797. It was a major financial and maritime power during the Middle Ages and Renaissance, and a staging area for the Crusades and the Battle of Lepanto, as well as an important center of commerce, especially silk, grain, and spice, and of art from the 13th century to the end of the 17th. The then city-state is considered to have been the first real international financial center, emerging in the 9th century and reaching its greatest prominence in the 14th century. This made Venice a wealthy city throughout most of its history. For centuries, Venice possessed numerous territories along the Adriatic Sea and within the Italian peninsula, leaving a significant impact on the architecture and culture that can still be seen today. The Venetian arsenal is considered by several historians to be the first factory in history and was the base of Venice's naval power. The sovereignty of Venice came to an end in 1797 at the hands of Napoleon. Subsequently, in 1866, the city became part of the Kingdom of Italy. Imagine fleeing destruction, with no land, no fresh water, and no roads. Yet, against all odds, these refugees laid the foundation for one of history's most remarkable cities. This was engineering genius. Wood that should rot became eternal, preserved underwater. Venice rose not on solid land, but on forests buried beneath the lagoon. Venice has been known as La Dominante, the dominant or the ruler, La Serenissima, the most serene, Queen of the Adriatic, City of Water, City of Masks, City of Bridges, the Floating City, and City of Canals. The lagoon and the city within the lagoon were inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987, covering an area of 70,176. 4 hectares, 173,410 acres. Venice is known for several important artistic movements, especially during the Italian Renaissance, and has played an important role in the history of instrumental and operatic music. It is the birthplace of Baroque music composers Tommaso Albinoni and Antonio Vivaldi. In the 21st century, Venice remains a very popular tourist destination, a major cultural center, and has often been ranked one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It has been described by the Times as one of Europe's most romantic cities and by the New York Times as undoubtedly the most beautiful city built by man. However, the city faces challenges, including over-tourism, pollution, tide peaks, and cruise ships sailing too close to buildings. Because Venice and its lagoon are under constant threat, Venice's UNESCO listing has been under constant examination. With no roads, Venetians dug canals for transport. Gondolas and boats became the lifeline of the city. This is further supported by the documentation on the so-called apostolic families, the 12 founding families of Venice who elected the first Doge, who in most cases trace their lineage back to Roman families. Some late Roman sources reveal the existence of fishermen on the islands in the original marshy lagoons, who were referred to as Incoli Lacuni, lagoon dwellers. The traditional founding is identified with the dedication of the first church, that of San Giacomo on the islet of Rialto, Rivolto, High Shore. said to have taken place at the stroke of noon on March 25, 421, the Feast of the Annunciation. Beginning as early as AD 166 to 168, the Quadi and Marcomanni destroyed the main Roman town in the area present-day Oderzo. This part of Roman Italy was again overrun in the early 5th century by the Visigoths and, some 50 years later, by the Huns led by Attila. The last and most enduring immigration into the north of the Italian peninsula, that of the Lombards in 568, left the Eastern Roman Empire only a small strip of coastline in the current Veneto, including Venice. The Roman/Byzantine territory was organized as the Exarchate of Ravenna, administered from that ancient port and overseen by a viceroy, the Exarch, appointed by the emperor in Constantinople. Ravenna and Venice were connected by just sea routes, and with the Venetians' isolation came increasing autonomy. New ports were built, including those at Malamocco and Torcello in the Venetian lagoon. The Tribuni formed the earliest central standing governing committee of the islands in the lagoon, dating from c. 568. The traditional first Doge of Venice, Paolo Lucio Anafesto, Anafestus Policius, was elected in 697, as written in the oldest chronicle by John, Deacon of Venice c. 1008. Some modern historians claim Paolo Lucio Anafesto was actually the Exarch Paul, and Paul's successor, Marcello Tegliano, was Paul's Magister Militum, literally, master of soldiers. In 726, the soldiers and citizens of the Exarchate rose in a rebellion over the iconoclastic controversy, at the urging of Pope Gregory II. The Exarch, held responsible for the acts of his master, Byzantine Emperor Leo III, was murdered, and many officials were put to flight in the chaos. At about this time, the people of the lagoon elected their own independent leader for the first time, although the relationship of this to the uprisings is not clear. Ursus was the first of 117 doges. Doge is the Venetian dialectal equivalent of the Latin dux. The corresponding word in English is duke, in standard Italian duca. Whatever his original views, Ursus supported Emperor Leo III's successful military expedition to recover Ravenna, sending both men and ships. In recognition of this, Venice was granted numerous privileges and concessions, and Ursus, who had personally taken the field, was confirmed by Leo as dux and given the added title of Hypatus. Venice wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, transforming impossible engineering into unmatched prosperity. In 751, the Lombard king Aistulf conquered most of the Exarchate of Ravenna, leaving Venice a lonely and increasingly autonomous Byzantine outpost. During this period, the seat of the local Byzantine governor was at Malamocco. Settlement on the islands in the lagoon probably increased with the Lombard conquest of other Byzantine territories, as refugees sought asylum in the area. In 775/6, the episcopal seat of Olivolo was created. During the reign of Duke Agnello Perticiaco, 811 to 827, the ducal seat moved from Malamocco to the more protected Rialto, within present-day Venice. The monastery of St. Zachary and the first ducal palace and basilica of St. Mark, as well as a walled defense between Olivolo and Rialto, were subsequently built here. Charlemagne sought to subdue the city to his rule. He ordered the Pope to expel the Venetians from the Pentapolis along the Adriatic coast. Charlemagne's own son Pepin of Italy, king of the Lombards, under the authority of his father, embarked on a siege of Venice itself. This, however, proved a costly failure. The siege lasted 6 months, with Pepin's army ravaged by the diseases of the local swamps and eventually forced to withdraw in 810. A few months later, Pepin himself died, apparently as a result of a disease contracted there. In the aftermath, an agreement between Charlemagne and the Byzantine Emperor Nicephorus in 814 recognized Venice as Byzantine territory and granted the city trading rights along the Adriatic coast. In 828, the new city's prestige increased with the acquisition, from Alexandria, of relics claimed to be of St. Mark the Evangelist. These were placed in the new basilica. Winged lions, visible throughout Venice, are the emblem of St. Mark. The patriarchal seat was also moved to Rialto. As the community continued to develop, and as Byzantine power waned, its own autonomy grew, leading to eventual independence. Today, the battle continues. Just as ancient Venetians engineered miracles, modern engineers fight to preserve this fragile jewel. The seizure of Constantinople proved as decisive a factor in ending the Byzantine Empire as the loss of the Anatolian themes after Manzikert. Although the Byzantines recovered control of the ravaged city a half-century later, the Byzantine Empire was terminally weakened and existed as a ghost of its old self until Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror took the city in 1453. So next time you see Venice, remember, beneath its beauty lies a hidden forest of wooden piles, a story of refugees who defied nature, and an engineering marvel that continues to inspire the world. This is the impossible engineering of Venice.